and that jarring cacophony tells you that we've reached the end of the 15th Doctor's era. Will the theme tune change in the future? Who knows? This is the Power 3 podcast. I'm Kenny Smith, and I'm here with, well, I think we could call them a bit of a mixed bag of co-conspirators. So, let's see who we've got here. Why, we've got, I see yonder, it's yon wee laddie, Davy Steele. Hello, Davy.
Hello, all right, Kenny, what's happening?
Oh, it's good, big man, good, big man. Over there, it's Dr. JB. Hi, Dr. JB.
Hi there. I was going to say hello, boys, but that's even creepier than your introduction.
Especially if you're... Yes, we're going to make the same joke, right? I'll let Kenny say it.
Well, it's all right if you're in a bra advert, then it's fine.
Well, I am in a bra, but...
Well, there we go. Bravo. And let's head up and say hello to our man, our lucky day. It's Stevie Day.
Hello, I'm Stevie, and I'm wearing tweed.
Although it looks like you've spilled something down your top at the moment, actually.
Is that tweed by Lawnfreak? Because you smell lovely.
It's a monkey. It's a MailChimp original T-shirt from when MailChimp first started.
Uh-huh.
I was an early adopter, and they sent me a T-shirt.
Oh, there you go. I use MailChimp every day. I'm now the king of the web monkeys, as I'm referred to at work.
Interesting.
Okay.
This is a Doctor Who podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, we're not here to discuss email distribution systems for newsletters, etc.
Oh, we should, though. That'd be quite interesting.
That's our new spin-off.
Let's talk about the most banal stuff that we've got today. I had to go through, I helped Pete with the delivery and had to check off all the new release graphic novels and trade paperbacks on the invoice, and I couldn't find one of the Fantastic Four books for about 5 minutes, so there you go.
Cool. What was the most banal thing you did, John?
Well, lots of things I can't say. I did take delivery of my my Panini Cyberman bookazine today, so that was
very nice.
Bad.
Gave me a little boost.
What about you, Stevie?
I repaired a VPN tunnel using AES 256 encryption.
Yeah, well, I got a letter from Debt Recovery Plus telling me that I owe them £170 for not paying a parking fine. I paid £2.50 to park at Livingston Shopping Centre. There's my ticket. They said my ticket wasn't valid because I paid in the wrong car park because their machine was broken, so I went to the next one. So I told them that they're getting NAFL money from me, and I've spoken to the centre management and they're going to get it cancelled. So that was my most banal thing.
I'll tell you something else, boys, that obviously from Kenny's bleeping machine is broken because that was constrained.
Yeah.
Yes.
Me? Yes. Ever do it. So, Doctor Who, the end of the 15th Doctor.
Yes.
So, I watched it in the cinema. I went to East Kilbride, and it was a pretty much, I'd say, 75 to 80% full cinema.
Surprise.
Mixture of ages, young and old. So
Yeah, my friend Ian went and said it was quite busy. Good turnout. So good. Good. Maybe all that box office revenue could go to a Christmas special.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, but there we go. So it all began last week with Wish World and lots of exciting things happening. Shall we hear a clip from it?
Yeah, go on then.
Yes, please.
Hologram explain?
The history books say the planet ended on the old Earth date, May the 24th, 2025. Cause? Unknown.
I am not just gonna take you home, I am gonna save your home. Here we go.
Let battle begin.
Morning, darling.
Morning, sweetheart.
Happy morning, everyone.
Happy morning, Conrad.
I ask you, how can anyone doubt this glorious world that we live in? Happy morning, Unified National Insurance Team. How can I help?
It's a shame these little people have to die. I was getting rather fond of them.
Well, I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. I just felt it was a bit of a mess. Too many things happening, obviously lots of setups. I went in extremely wary because I'm I've been around long enough to know that there's often an amazing setup for the penultimate episode, and then it comes crashing down. So I went in with very low expectations, and none of them were met, other than, oh my God, right, what is this about? Who's this person? Why is this happening? Running around, again, a familiar trope of the alternate reality. I thought, here we go again. Who's the big baddie du jour? Oh, it's Omega. Right, okay, tick, another. So it was very much, I felt it was a pretty underwhelming, throw everything at the wall, Russell T Davies penultimate episode. And I didn't really enjoy it at all, beyond some amazing visuals. I thought some of the visuals were absolutely stunning. The kind of the bone creatures I thought were so strange and terrifying, and I thought beautifully realised. I thought the Bone Palace as well, again, an amazing concept, nice little visual throwbacks and nods to the Ergon, I thought too. But the basic premise of it, I just thought, no, I've been here too many times. And it was just all a kind of a hot mess towards the end.
I thought it was a visit to Nothingburg or New Jersey, quite frankly. As John says, like, bringing back Omega after we've had Sutek and the Toymaker, it's just like, and obviously we had a good chat last week about Omega, and really enjoyed our chat about that episode, and what you put together was marvellous, really, really enjoyable. So it was worth it for that.
Excellent but rhyming, by the way. I loved your little rhymes. I thought they were wonderful. We'll do another one though.
Zagreus watches Dr. John. Zagreus knows what's going on. Zagreus wonders where he's gone, and sees you when you're recording an episode of The Power of Three. Rubbish. What did I think? I mean, it was weird. It was all, again, it felt like a cross between Turn Left and Human Nature, like, plus episodes of Years and Years sort of crammed in, because what Ruth was doing seemed really similar to, from what I could remember, from what she had to do towards the end of Years and Years. And I didn't feel, especially in the first part, that Archie and Anita got terribly much to do as the Rani. I didn't, for all that was actually achieved in that whole long preamble, 5 minutes of that could have been used at the start of the finale, and we could have had another more interesting story instead.
I thought it started really well, because we were back in the Rani's homeworld of forests. Small children, minding cottages.
Forgot all about that, yeah.
And I thought, here we go, eras of Colin Baker. And I suppose I feel much like the rest of you. I felt you could have taken this episode and the final episode and put them into sort of 3 acts of 20 minutes each, and it would probably have worked really well. I just felt there was too much maybe exposition and setting up. I wrote in my notes it was a bit of a cross between The Prisoner and Fallout from Amazon Prime. It's that kind of set, but the speed of a really slow episode of The Prisoner. And we've all, I love The Prisoner, but we've all sat through the episodes where they bounce on trampolines for endless time. Can't even remember why. Anyway, and I just kind of felt that's where we were going. And of course, at the end of the episode, I turned to my beloved, and she was like, What? And who's Omega? Because she had a memory of Omega. And it was just a little bit kind of, I think you could have done it all in 20 minutes and then boom, 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 straight in. So, do you know, I have watched Doctor Who and really enjoyed it a lot less than this. It's not that I couldn't pick out bits. There were some lovely one-liners that I absolutely liked, as in, what was it? United National Insurance Team. That made me giggle. I enjoyed that. We had our message of the week, ignoring the dispossessed, the disabled and stuff. I didn't object to that. That was all good. Nothing I can put my finger on apart from speed and pace. And from me as a director, I always get into trouble with speed and pace, because you get so involved in what you're doing, you forget that other people are going to watch it. And I think that's my opinion. That's what I would have done with this episode. I would have made the mistake, concentrated too much on the visuals, and forgot that people actually wanted to eat their tea and get on with the story.
You know, you kind of mentioned the whole exposition thing. I mean, I thought it was really insulting to have that bit of dialogue saying, this isn't just exposition, Doctor. You know, I'm not going to swear, but, you know, I thought that's just really disrespectful to your audience, because that's exactly what this is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that sort of...
something it's not.
Yeah, doing that is obviously, that's them trying to be, you know, show that they're being self-aware and clever.
Yeah.
But it's just patronising. Yeah.
Yeah.
The highlights for me, and I know it's not universally agreed, but I thought Anita Dobson was excellent as the policewoman, because I wouldn't like to meet her after having gently crashed into her panda car. That's for sure. And I love the fact that Stephen Thorne got a final outing. You know, whatever we think of the resolution of Omega, it was nice to hear him one last time.
With an excerpt from a Big Finish audio in there as well.
Big Finish. And you know what this did was it made me be able to introduce to Debbie the Three Doctors, which she has no memory of watching. I know she has, and we sat there and watched that the other night. She chuckled away through it and enjoyed it. So there's a positive. She wanted to know who Omega was, so she'd have an idea what was going on in the final episode.
Talking of Omega, when that pattern appeared when the seal of Rassilon, which I always thought was a Pridonian seal, I've always referred to it as the Pridonian seal rather than seal of Rassilon, but that's just me. Was it me when it just morphed? Was that like Omega's pattern from Arc of Infinity? It was something like that kind of swirly.
I thought that was. I haven't been able to find that image again, but it looked awfully familiar. It looked a bit like what was on his helmet. Pardon the expression.
Oh, I was on the breast piece.
Much better.
On his bra.
Oh dear. Part of his costume, shall we say, that was on top of his shoulders or above his shoulders.
Robes.
It's robes. Thank you very much. I hope I brought some joy to everyone with my...
Yes, it looks like Dave's crying.
It's just what the Doctor said about Omega's bra. I won't be able to watch that story ever again in the same way.
The bra like, you know.
But, yes, gosh. Bras and Doctor Who, that's a feature that Kenny should pitch to Doctor Who magazine.
I'm not sure it's back to Hartnell on the Vaseline, I think.
Oh, dear. I can't remember sort of noticing Omega's sort of symbol or anything. It was nice to see Bonnie back, I'll say that.
Yes.
Yep.
Great to see Bonnie back. It still blows my mind, and, you know, I've seen a lot of discourse the last day or two about the permanent nostalgia stuff that people are perceiving, and you know that's one thing I won't criticise, because it's wonderful nearly 40 years later that she's playing that character again and just doing it so well. You know, lovely to see Bonnie.
Wouldn't it have been nice if that street had all been populated by former companions?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh God, it would have been very expensive, but you can't. Yeah, that would have been lovely. Maybe Rose could have been one of them.
We'll come back to that later. So let's whip out the rotometer and we'll just get a quick soundbite. So John, what was your mark for this one?
2 out of 5.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, same.
Okay, it's a round robin of matching scores, so that's good. Consistency. And here we go. It's the final episode now. Let's have a little excerpt from that.
Deep in the Underverse, Omega, with his body, I can resurrect the Time Lords and construct a new Gallifrey.
My battle is in there, saving my daughter.
I swear, I will stop you.
Omega live.
Fire!
So, were we expecting that ending, people?
No.
It's a weird one, isn't it? I'd heard so many conflicting rumours and stuff the last few months from various people that it was going to be a conclusion, a defined, proper end, you know, line drawn under the end, Doctor settled, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of went in with that expectation. And then, of course, there's been rumours about cast members and stuff, and there was that story in the papers a couple of weeks ago that that Ncuti and the BBC were finished with done with Ncuti as a result of him pulling out of the Eurovision announcement. And I sort of wondered now if that story was sort of generated to try and create a bit of expectation that he might be going, because I have said many times in the past that I would love to watch an episode of Doctor Who and be surprised by the regeneration, because that has never happened to me apart from when I first saw Logopolis when I was 8. And I kind of, wish world and all that. I got my wish. I didn't know that he was definitely going in this. I thought it might be a possibility. So there was that. I was really, really disappointed that he's gone. I should say that Ncuti's gone, because I think ever since Eccleston did one series, it's kind of created this sort of almost expectation that you give more thought to how long a Doctor actor's going to hang around than you would normally. That's just ever since. And DT hung around for a while, and Matt did a while, and Peter did a while, and Jodie did a while. There was gaps between some of it, and a lot of it was spaced out. But you've always had that preoccupation of how long are they going to be around because of that. And despite all the rumours about Disney not wanting to go any further, I hadn't given an awful lot of real thought to him, and the rumours about Ncuti not doing any more and wanting to buy out his career and all this, buy out his contract and all that. That was in the Pop Bitch email a couple of months ago. And I didn't really entertain it as being an option, because I kind of hoped and wanted them to do more. And when you boil it down, if you take away the giggle, he was in 18 episodes, and then 3 of those were Dr. Light. So I really feel like we hardly got to know him. I was a little dissatisfied with the way Omega was sort of dealt with, because it could have been anything. It didn't look, Omega coming in as a big CGI sand creature was a bit underwhelming. Thought everyone in it was brilliant. I thought as a Russell finale, it was surprisingly coherent and surprisingly linear, even though it did do the reset thing that we got last year, that we got in Last of the Time Lords. And having no idea that Jodie's 13th Doctor was going to turn up, I was delighted, and I'm not ashamed to say I burst into tears. I was absolutely ecstatic to see her. I thought she was amazing. She just flew straight in like she hadn't stopped. It was a very short scene, but it was up there with Troughton and the 3 Doctors and DT and Dave the Doctor for best performance by a returning Doctor, if there is such a thing. I know there's not been that many, but she just floated in and floated out again, and it was joyous, really. So it was, to coin a phrase, maybe this episode could be called it was a bit of a mixed bag, but I genuinely really, really enjoyed it on its own terms for what it was.
I really did enjoy this episode. Just watched it again there before we came on, and time just flew by when I watched it. Sometimes on a second watch, I feel, how long is this? I had no idea, actually. Was it 62 minutes or 60, whatever, over an hour? No idea when we started watching it that that's what was going to be. I suspected there was going to be a regeneration purely because of how it had been written in the last few episodes, and especially Interstellar Song Contest. I couldn't see a way back for the Doctor merrily torturing somebody unless they completely retconned it. I couldn't see how that was going to go, and we were getting a bit of a darker Doctor. So I wasn't surprised, but I have to say, like Dave, I was quite emotional at the end. I loved him as a Doctor. There's no doubt about that. I'm not saying, as some people have been saying on all kinds of places, he was all right. I thought he was an excellent Doctor. I thought the addition of Jodie was very emotional. Bringing back characters like Anita, who I have to say, what a performance. She went off looking for him in her spare time and then discovered him with Rogue, and you didn't need dialogue there. What a brilliant performance. You could see her heart breaking. So to bring back characters like that, I also feel that, whether it returns or not, we seem to have a goodbye to the TARDIS at the end. I don't know if you noticed that. Where he's busy starting to regenerate outside, we suddenly have a view inside of the TARDIS as the console gets golden and darker. So whether that was a bit of a possible goodbye in case we don't see it again in that form, I don't know. I thought the Rani was over and done with very quickly. That was a shame. I didn't feel, hopefully we'll see her again one day. I just didn't feel she had enough of that. The Omega stuff was explained. It was Omega, but not Omega. Well, whatever. not absolutely necessary to the plot. I feel, I mean, for years with Russell episodes, when we get to regeneration, I think it was David Tennant, first of all, he was going to regenerate and then he could hold it back. And then we had the long goodbye, which some people described as overly sentimental. I look back on it now and I really enjoy it. But that seemed to have been, copying that again. He got to say his goodbyes. He got to find out about Poppy. What a wee performer she was.
Oh, she's great. Yeah, she was great.
And if you've watched Unleashed Work Experience, and you see, it's worth it just for that, even if you're not a Doctor Who fan.
It's that bit when the show are just sort of sitting down in a chair ready to be interviewed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a dad, but my ovaries pinged.
Yeah.
Doctor Who.
Yeah. But I just think, and it gave me an awful lot of stuff, and I know a lot about Doctor Who. I'm not an expert, as some people in here are, but it brought everything I wanted to it. Accessibility for others, I'm not sure. I did notice the big thing for me, it had a lot of action in it, and I love action in my.
Yeah, I mean that's an excellent point, because I remember being really annoyed at both Eccleston and Tennant's final episode, because all Eccleston does for much of it is sit wiring a plug, whilst Rose gets and Mickey and Jackie have some dialogue, and Jack gets to do lots of fighting. And then in DT's last episode, he doesn't even talk for the first 8 or 9 minutes, and then he spends ages wiring the plug, whilst lots of other stuff happens on other sets. Whereas Ncuti was properly at the heart of it this time. That was an improvement.
Yeah. I didn't see a plug. And I'm sure I'm right about this, there were no tears.
Mm-hmm.
No anxiety. He just went forward in all his beliefs. Anyway, that's what I think.
Oh, where to begin?
Well, first question, John. Do you still have a television in your house that works?
Yes.
Do you still have a hammer?
This is a very different podcast from what would have been if we recorded on Saturday evening, because I've had considerable change of heart or hearts, despite the fact I haven't watched it again. But I've been doing a lot of introspection and stuff and whatnot, and all sorts of other big words. Certainly, it was very emotional. The stuff with Anita, as you were saying there, Stevie, I could feel, that kind of pain when she saw the Doctor. I thought, oh God, that made me feel really sad. So for me, it was very emotional. As I said, the stuff with Anita, as you were saying, Stevie, that really, you could really feel the emotional punch of that. I thought the whole stuff with the whole part with them folding Poppy's coat until it disappears completely, I thought that was really effective and also deeply sad. And I thought the kind of loss that's involved in that, and they're oblivious to it, but Ruby's not. So I thought that was really, really powerful. And then I guess, as we were saying, there were rumours about what might happen, the possibility of regeneration. I'd convinced myself that wasn't going to happen with the launch of the Barbies and all that. I thought, well, they wouldn't do that if he's going to be regenerating. Naive as I was, so I kind of talked myself out of that. And then there was the point just about halfway through where you kind of go, oh no, hang on a minute, I see where this is going. And again, it was one of these kind of massive, I could feel my stomach flip, and I was just so sad for the whole of the rest of it that, I don't know if I adequately kind of took in the rest of the resolution of the story, such as it was in terms of a resolution. I thought on the whole it kind of bucked the trend of the amazing build-up and then a really crappy finale. I thought it was a lot better than that, although I still thought there were so many wasted opportunities. The stuff with the Rani, what was that about? She was there and left, and there was a bit of me that thought, is it just to have this big build-up to the two Ranis joke? Is that where we are? The whole thing about Omega, out comes Omega, hang on a bit, no, he's gone back into his hell dimension. Pretty pointless.
just things like, the Rani explaining away stuff again with hitting the big red button. I saw the whatever it was, extinction wave coming, so I flipped my DNA, lol, as you do. Oh, well, what does that mean? Did you use the chameleon arch? Okay, it wouldn't have burdened the episode with any more lore to say that, or mention a fob watch. I just thought just so many things that either didn't make sense, or by the end of it I didn't care about. The whole thing with Poppy, lovely, cute as she was, I just didn't really think that she was the linchpin of the story, but had to become that for the last part leading up to the regeneration. I just felt that there were so many things that didn't make sense because it was manifestly not the finale that it was meant to be, and the joins were quite apparent, and the things that weren't resolved may have been resolved in the other ending. Like, why tease us with Susan, and then, well, there's no more of that then. Obviously, I've picked up on a little bit of discourse over the past couple of days since the finale, suggesting that when Russell was writing all of this, given the fact that all of this was written way before last year's stuff was even transmitted, for the most part, in terms of story arcs, that this was not meant to be a Belinda and Poppy arc. This was meant to be something to do with Ruby, and that's why it feels inconsistent, and why the way Belinda was disposed of towards the end of the episode, literally just had to get rid of her because she had nothing to contribute. And Russell T Davies was really up against it to come up with a conclusion of sorts, and in the end it delivered most of that. But I think, when I watched Doctor Who Unleashed and the conversations around, all the background stuff around, like, Jodie's code name of Petrol, and all the discourse around what a great name Petrol is, and people have been saying, what on earth is he talking about? Has he taken leave of his senses? I felt it was just really apparent that he was done almost himself.
Yeah.
I just got a real sense that, I won't say he was a broken man, but I think he was forcing himself into that levity that which is second nature to him. This was not what he wanted to write. This is not the conclusion that he wanted to give this Doctor or these characters, and he was just trying to put on the bravest of brave faces. And so that in turn made me feel quite sad, and it made me feel sad for him, which is not what I was feeling on Saturday night. I was poised above the telly with the hammer. I was echoing the mantras of Russell T Davies must go and all of that. But the more I've thought back on it, the more I've thought, yeah, okay, he has fumbled some things in this run. I think it has been excessively self-referential, or whatever you would call it, narratively self-cannibalistic. And we have seen a lot of this before, but he cares deeply about the show, and he's made some really interesting choices, and I think this is a really sad way for it to end for him. I don't know if it's the end for him, but even down to the reveal of Billy, because again I saw that speculated online last week, and I kind of thought, if that happens, I am so over this. That for me would be the ultimate bankruptcy creatively. But there's a bit of me thinking now, and that would be no judgment on Billie Piper, who I think is an amazing actor. I think she's fantastic and would be an amazing Doctor. But just in terms of that, what do I do? Oh, right, okay, let's revert to nepotistic casting, number 12,005. But if you're up against it and you need something, if you need a quick placeholder, then why not? We don't know who or what she's playing either. But yeah, I've become a lot more empathetic over the past 48 hours. It's not where I was, as I said, on Saturday night.
Nothing's as fickle as a Doctor Who fan, is it?
Exactly. Or a Whovian, as I'm sorry to say. The term is used several times.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of things wrong with that episode, but I think a lot of it was to do with probably reshooting and recutting. For example, how did Ruby know how to work the baby? Because, well, I mean, it's really simple. If you read the instructions, you kiss the baby, make a wish, you blow into the air, that wish becomes true. So we saw the Rani do it, and I'm pretty sure Rashid worked out how to do it. We never saw Conrad do it, so therefore how does Ruby know? How does the Doctor know? I think there's been bits that's had to be cut for time here, which is not helping our understanding of it and how it flows along. The Billy Piper stuff, I mean, that totally by surprise for me. Didn't know, hadn't read. The fact that she's not introduced as the Doctor is good. I mean, we've got Bad Wolf Girl, we've got Rose, we've got a completely different character. Do you know, I don't think I really cared. I think for me, the more powerful ending and a continuation would have been him going into light, roll credits.
Yeah.
I think it was unnecessary to have her in there for whatever reason. And I do feel sorry for RTD. I watch a lot of interviews with him, and what I would say is that he's had to become much more hard-nosed about this all. I think, like a lot of showrunners, it's a pretty crap thing to do sometimes. To be a showrunner or a director, you don't get much joy out of it, to be honest with you. You certainly don't do it for the plaudits. It's a slog to keep everybody going. And watching Unleashed confidentially, I just felt really sorry for him. I thought, this has been a rough ride, and as a director, you don't always get what you want because it's all in the edit, and you don't always have control of that. And I do feel, I don't know for sure, but I do feel that in the edit, sacrifices had to be made. 67 minutes, I think, was the runtime. I think they're probably lucky to get that, given that you should be a 50. And I don't know when the reshoots were ordered, but watching Confidentially Unleashed, Ncuti's last recorded scene, I don't think was his last recorded scene. They may be saying that was his last recorded scene, that's a wrap for him, but he came back and redid, and that must have been tricky times as well for everybody involved. So I enjoyed it as an episode, rough around the edges. It's a highlight for me for the season, there's no doubt, and I'm really sorry that he's gone.
The Billy thing's interesting because I went into work on Thursday, and one of my pals at work said, have you heard anything about Billy Piper being the next Doctor? And I was like, no. So I texted a source who shall remain nameless and said, have you heard anything about Billy being the new Doctor? And my source got back to me. My source, told me quite a lot of other stuff which panned out and a lot of stuff which didn't, so maybe they were being told different sort of things. And they replied saying, yeah, I've heard it's the final shot. And I was like, right. I think it's been done because... Can you hear the wind outside my flat, by the way? It sounds like there's a bee farting against the glass. Sorry.
It'll be joining in the flood outside my window.
Yeah. It was... there's a couple of sort of not contradictory sort of thoughts about it. One, I think it's absolute creative bankruptcy. It's sheer desperation. If she's seriously the next Doctor, I think it just shows that, and I have sympathies. The pressure, I've never had to run Doctor Who. The pressures on it must be enormous. It was bad enough they brought DT and Catherine back for the anniversary and then had to do all that exposition at the start to remind people of where it left off 15 years earlier. I think it's sheer desperation to just think, right, we'll get Billy. It's a gimmick. But at the same time, it's generated a lot of discourse and it's going to create an expectation that we're going to get some more. Like one of my friends on Facebook had said something about talking to his mum about it, and his mum saying, I can't wait to Christmas to see what happens with Billy as the Doctor. So there is this. It's going to be harder for it to fade off into the sunset if they had just done the ending that was originally planned for Jodie, which was ending with the regeneration and not seeing what happened next. I'm sympathetic. I have sympathy towards Russell to an extent, but equally, I really, probably in equal measure, I don't, because I really haven't cared for a lot of the creative choices that he's made this time round. I haven't appreciated a lot of the stories. I keep saying to people, all this Disney money, and we didn't get, widescreen Daleks versus Cybermen. We didn't get the Loch Ness Monster done in proper CGI. We didn't, they haven't done the French Revolution since 1964. We could have had the Scarlet Pimpernel or something. It just feels like this. So many of the episodes, especially this year, well, I think my overall satisfaction has been higher than last year. They felt really tiny and claustrophobic. Like, we're in a cinema, we're in a mining thing, we're in a couple of rooms in a corridor on a planet named after Belinda. It's all felt quite small scale. But again, you've got to, I've never had to run Doctor Who. I don't know the pressures he was working under. So I'm not going to be one of these people that jumps onto his Instagram and, insults him like I've seen some people doing. I think it seems to be, when I was watching it, that the story had got to an end about 45 minutes in, and then there was a whole other sort of thing tacked on, and it really felt like there was a real crunch of gears and a real sort of shift, and it's like, right, now we have to go into the regeneration and deal with all that. And I was kind of like, I had to explain it to someone as to what happened. Like, well, he induced the regeneration so that he could use the energy to try and adjust time so that the child would be real and history would be altered. Belinda had a relationship so that the child was born, and I was all right, okay, and that's nice. But I really just was not ready for him to go. I just feel like we'd barely scratched the surface, and I wish, I really hope that we get a book in 10 or 15 years or something, if we're all still alive for it, that explains everything that happened. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for all these meetings at Disney or at the BBC to where things were decided, and there's been so many rumours and counter-rumours about things happening on set and the attitude of, members of staff, for want of a better way of putting it. And it really does seem like what we got it doesn't feel at all like this was what was planned. Do we all think, and I'm interested in what everyone thinks, do we think that she is the Doctor, or she's a manifestation of Bad Wolf, or the moment, or something? What do we think?
I hope she's not the Doctor.
Yeah.
I really do. I think there's so much you could draw from the characters she's played to make it interesting, or to tell a story, or I'm the moment, I'm going to tell you about the day I met the Doctor kind of thing. I know we've had Peter Capaldi being a inverted commas companion and then becoming the Doctor, and the same for Colin Baker. Well, not companion. I can't see that working, to be honest with you. I think as a storytelling device, good. And then we introduce another Doctor.
If she's the moment, great, or something else, but not as the Doctor. If she had never been the companion, I think she would be stellar casting as the Doctor. But no. As a placeholder, as something to get Russell through this moment, then I can understand that 100%.
I mean, it could be a Blake Seven moment that we talk about for years.
Yeah.
Until something comes along and there's a reboot in some form.
Yep. Sapphire and Steel stuck in that petrol station in space. Yep. It's a weird one because it's been so odd, because so much of the discussion of this has been in public, and everyone's been speculating, and no one really knows exactly what went on, and it's just weird that I've said this 1,000 times. I might have said it when we talked before. I remember when I was at the Playground Festival tail end of 2020, September 2021, whenever it was, and Kenny's saying, right, Tom and I are going to record. Can you come on? I was like, no, I'm working at music. I'm standing at a table, trying to hang a Wi-Fi cable. I can't come on and talk about Russell coming back. But the thing was, we all thought Russell was going to come back and steady the ship after some quite varied and sometimes unsatisfying stuff for Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. We thought Russell was going to come in and steady the ship. It would be a new golden age. Everything would get fixed. And I don't think anyone thought it would play out the way it has. And I think a lot of that comes down to Russell has decided to tell certain types of stories, to impart certain kinds of messages, rather than just going, right, we're going on Disney. Jodie's first few episodes really felt to me like a return to first principles, and this is what this should have been. They should have gone, right, what do? We do time and space, with the emphasis on that and the scope and scale we've got. But instead we got babies and snot monsters, we got Beatles versus drag queens, we got the Doctor having an interracial gay relationship, and it's like, this isn't going to steady the ship. This is introducing new things. Fair, you got to introduce new things, but after the unsettled period and unsatisfactory general sort of feeling that people had about the 13th Doctor, it was madness to do all this sort of stuff. I'm so disappointed at the way it's gone. I never thought that when we heard Russell was coming back that we'd be even talking about it ending so soon.
The one thing that really grabbed my attention, and I nearly missed it, was what happened after Doctor Who, when we got that trailer. Don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that, for me, screamed Torchwood, Children of Earth.
Yes.
Want to see that different from when I've been watching Doctor Who trailers, where I've thought, oh, that's Doctor Who on Saturday. Now, I'm not saying this mini-series is going to be brilliant, but it grabbed me. And I think there's a formula to Who. I think Big Finish has got it. I think some of the BBC audio dramas have really got it. Now, you sometimes have to step outside the mould, because if you just repeat doing everything you've done, I'll give you an example, pantomime. Love to direct pantomime, but you have to step away from that sometimes because you do the same thing every year, and if you're not careful, you're using almost the same script. I would say the same is true for Doctor Who. You've got to use a formula, and you've got to use a tried and tested formula, and step out from time to time. But you've really got to give that what they want, and that kind of drive, that kind of adventure. We talked about action in this episode. It's been sorely lacking in a lot of episodes. There's been lots of talking. I would say the same about the Jodie series.
Yeah.
Good potential, but then we'll sit and talk about custard creams for half an hour.
Yeah. I was forever saying that all Jodie seemed to do was, especially the further it went on, was just deliver exposition, and a lot of that to herself.
Yeah. But wasn't she great in her however many minutes?
She was wonderful. And finding out in Confidential that she was wearing a wig. That's a wig. Shut your big fat mouths. I mean, it was that was another point I wanted to make, actually, because I think the only reason that worked so well is because she was so recent. See if it had been David Bradley coming in as the first Doctor again, like he did in Power Doctor, wouldn't have worked anywhere near as well. Wouldn't have the same impact. It's like what I remember thinking when I did my big objective all the way through watch through of Doctor Who, which everyone's going to have time to do now, Kenny. I'm thinking that as nice as it was to see Patrick and Fraser again in the two Doctors, it would have been much more effective if it had been Peter Davison and Janet Fielding, because they'd only just gone, and seeing them again would have been, for the current audience at that point, would have been really exciting, rather than the fan audience who know who this little old man and the Scottish lad are. So that's why I think Jodie coming back in was amazing. Like, arguably when the other Doctors popped up in Power of the Doctor, it was a bit more fan servicey, especially none of them 5, 6 and 7 at least didn't really look what they did look like on television. But Jodie coming back and really making it seem in a way like she'd never been away. She just ran in and it was like, oh God, right. There she is. And it was done so well that she didn't come in a close-up, or you heard her voice first of all, and then it was like, I just couldn't believe it. I literally sat on my couch here 1 o'clock in the morning and just started swearing. I was like, I could not believe it. And I could have done without her telling Ncuti's doctor that he was gorgeous, because that's just narcissism, and fancying yourself was never attractive. I could have done without that, and him saying, as everyone else flashed up on the screen, I was the best. I thought, no, you weren't, mate. You could have been if you'd stuck around a bit longer. But it was really nice to see Jodie, and I'm glad it was Jodie, and not, with no disrespect, I'm glad it wasn't Jo Martin, because as good as she's been, she's she's not, she's not a real doctor, but it was just lovely. And that photograph of the two of them together on the TARDIS set, like I just sat, right clicked and I just keep looking at it and going, amazing. It was so nice to see her, and that was what made me actually finally go, right, I haven't ordered the big Finish stuff yet, I'm going to do it now.
And didn't you love that? Did you see the selfie of the unit cast that's in the rounds as well, that Shirley took? It's a lovely picture of, obviously, at that moment, very happy people. I'd
heard last summer that the Disney thing wasn't proceeding, and obviously a lot of the discourse recently has been, when are we going to find out? And we've been told that Disney aren't going to make a decision until after this series finishes. But it really seems, if you've got a conclusion where your incumbent Doctor is going, then that doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence that there is going to be any more from Disney, does it?
Mm-hmm. No, and but equally, if you're an actor and you're trying to plan your future and you're not getting a decision as to whether you've got a future here, you're going to go off and get other stuff. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. But then Disney, I mean, I don't watch an awful lot, but okay, for obvious reasons, Andor went to season 2. There's been other things that have just gone to 1 or 2 seasons and been dropped. Mm-hmm. That have been perfectly respectable productions, but it's obviously not tick the box. So in many ways, that doesn't really surprise me. And again, RTD went off to do, what was it, Star Trek Day, to get the 2 franchises together, and you wonder whether that was part of seeing what else was out there for the money. But I was thinking about this because I can't remember who it was that we were saying about the cost of 4K equipment, and what things say you've got to have this, you've got to have that, you've got to have the other. In the days that lots of people are watching stuff on phones and tablets, how high a resolution do you have to go?
Yeah.
And in the days of increasing costs of everything, let's put it this way, essentials like food is very expensive. There's maybe somebody has to actually look and say, look, we want to produce stories, we want to produce something decent. What is wrong? What's wrong with HD? What's the problem with not producing a movie quality effect on the basis that no one's going to be watching it on huge devices? Yes, it's great to be able to show it in the cinema, but we're all having to cut costs. Maybe they really do have to look and say, right, budget here.
Yeah. How was the cinema experience, Kenny? Did you get it
was amazing.
Was it like Day of the Doctor when there was specially recorded stuff? Or
there was before it began. It was just I actually missed the first minute because I'd ended up running to the shops to try and buy the DWM Cyberman special. They didn't have it, and by the time I got back up, it was just I'd missed the first minute, so I'd got the Rani in Hansel and Gretel land. But it was great. Then after the first episode finished, there was a break saying Doctor Who will return. I've taken a picture of it. I'll pop it out in the socials. And then there was a message from Varada Sethu giving us here we go. Here comes the finale. It's been a real joy being involved in Doctor Who, blah, 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 blah. And then it went into it. And then we got the trailer right at the end as well. And then everybody got up and left. So it was...
What was the audience reaction to stuff like Jodie's Doctor turning up and all that?
There was quite a few gasps and you could almost hear the collective intake of breath,
right?
And there's a few people were and obviously the reaction to Billy appearing was some people going, "Yay!" You can sort of just in case.
Yeah, I saw reactions to from cinema from people who've been recording at the end, and it was quite incredible because there was a few claps on one of them, Ncuti regenerates, or, little kind of clap, well done, and then Billy appears, and the one guy's like, what? And other people are going, yay! So the reactions seem to be totally mixed between, yeah, just kidding, no, what?
Yeah.
And people going, oh, that is brilliant, this is what I want. It goes to prove you can't please everyone, can you? It's,
Yeah, got a little bit of trivia for you here. Here we go. Right, I'm going to read out just this little post-it notes that I've written here. Damaged Goods, Doctor Who and the Time War, Series 1, Series 2 to 4, Death of the Doctor, Torchwood, Children of Earth, The Reality War, the 2023 specials, seasons 1 and 2. It means that Russell has now written for the Doctors 7 through to 15, including the War Doctor.
Yeah.
But there we go. Just a little bit of trivia that.
Where did he write for Matty and for PCAP?
For Death of the Doctor, he wrote for Matt in the Sarah Jane
Oh,
Adventures.
of course, for Sarah Jane
And
Adventures, right.
Children of Earth, Torchwood.
He wrote for
PCAP.
he wrote for Mr. Frobisher. He didn't write for the Doctor.
Well, I did. He's written for the actor, but yes.
I think that the other thing, the interesting stat that this brings up is how many Doctors Jodie has appeared in the opposite or in the same shared scenes with, or appeared in the same episodes. You know, that's quite, that's not bad, given that she got to meet five of them in Power of the Doctor, and then meeting Ncuti. That's pretty cool. I'm glad that both Jodie and Ncuti got proper in canon multi-Doctor episodes. But we have to talk. There's something else we have to talk about, boys. Ncuti's now the only Doctor never to have met the Daleks and Cybermen on screen. I mean, that to me is insane. I can't, I saw an interview with Russell quite recently where he sort of said, I didn't want to do Daleks, Cybermen and Master because Jodie's last episode literally had them all teaming up and all that. And you go, fair enough. But that was 2022. Your first full series is going out like, a year and a half later. That's plenty of time. You can't think about it in those terms. This is your chance to do something. This is your chance to do it all in a big, as I keep saying. I think it's madness that he hasn't met, those villains. I think it's insane. But he got Omega and and the Toy Maker and the Rani. It's just bonkers.
I mean, I suppose what it showed was, although not, universally like the entire series, we had an entire series without them, and we've enjoyed an awful lot of episodes. But I do feel that we have missed out. There was something on something I was reading about, people complaining that the Daleks were overused, but the moment you don't have them, they're complaining that they're not there. John Pertwee famously never met the Cybermen. That was fixed in the 5 Doctors, so that became canon. But yeah, I do think would we still be talking about Doctor Who now if the second adventure hadn't had the Daleks in it? I would say probably not. If the Daleks hadn't come along, Doctor Who could have become a very pedestrian, quietly forgotten sci-fi show. They helped. They came back. People were looking for that. And then other things grew out of it. Again, it's back to formula, isn't it? What do you use? One of my favourite episodes on audio is Dark Eyes.
I love Dark Eyes.
Because of the use of the Daleks.
Yeah.
Clever use of the Daleks. And that's the thing. You don't have to come in, as Dalek itself proved, you don't have to have a million of them. I can't remember what number we were up to. What was it? 3 trillion we were hoping for? Anyway, all you need is one. I know we had lots at the end of the episode, but again, formulas. I did like the fact, talking of formulas though, she got her line, "Oh, you've redecorated." Don't like it. I think every Doctor should get the opportunity to have that other variant.
Yeah, that was fun. That was nice.
There's a bit of me that just wants to have a regeneration which isn't preceded by a big speech, so old school.
Yeah.
I remember when they just keel over, glow a little bit, and then, that's it. Bob's your auntie. And now it's all this, can I do a speech? Can I? I will then. That's a reference for League of Gentlemen purists. But this is like, we've got to have a big speech, and then in this one I thought, no, this isn't landing with me. I get, Joy is wonderful, but I thought, is this just a big setup, to reference Joy Star? I thought, well, at least we're not getting that terrible special effect of her, heading off up into the sky to become the Star of Bethlehem. But it was
Don't remind me.
But I just kind of thought, gosh, yeah, a little speech, fine, but not.
It wasn't as bad as, with no disrespect. At least it didn't go on as long as PCAPs.
I know that was milking it. Definitely.
At that point, I was just like, I was fed up with it by that point, because it's like,
never eat pears.
Yeah, it's like,
I hate pears.
But that's not true. I was one lovely pear over there. You said once to me when you might not have been talking about fruit.
I'm sitting right here, for goodness sake.
Jokes. It's yeah. I admire the restraint, but I can't emphasize enough. It really was amazing not to know it was coming, really, because none of it. There's been so much speculation and counter speculation. I've got Unleashed on in the background here, and I'm watching him sort of like doing his thank yous to the unit lot, and you sort of think, did they have to hire everyone back into? When did they know he was going?
I see.
If all those actors are, I noticed that Donna's daughter's character isn't there for this part. May not have been available. But you just sort of think, like, at what point did they know he was going, and that they had to? How much did it cost to reshoot and hire everyone in? And it's just.
But I honestly think that they finished on Unit. He'd already filmed everything they were going to. They finished on the Unit. That was their wrap, and then the recall was TARDIS and Belinda and Poppy.
Yeah. Well, see, I noticed the tweet tonight. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll put it in the group chat so we can all see it. Someone commenting that they'd noticed that in some scenes the director's hair was much longer.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
See that? Yeah. And you sort of think, right, does that all tie in? Was Jodie part of the reshoot? The reshoot at the end, because the director's hair was longer at that point. And you just sort of think, like, I just want to know. I never will, but I really just want to know everything that happened and what went on. And we need some kind of whistleblower to kind of blow the lid off it and tell us all the tea, as my friend Kelly would say.
Yeah, because that's what I found a bit exasperating about the Unleashed stuff. All this pretense about, we're taking you behind the scenes, let you see what's happening. So, well, no, actually, you're showing us a very tightly controlled and sanitized version of events. So don't blow smoke up our ass. Just tell us the truth. We want the answers. We're big enough to take it.
Talking of telling the truth, can we talk about the fracture effect?
Yes.
Which we saw twice during that regeneration.
Oh, so, twice?
Yes. So is that a plot point?
I noticed the first one that when Dr. John's link to us went down, I went and got my copy of the Androzani novelization because there was one line that stuck in my head immediately watching that, and I sort of reality split, fragmented, shattered into 1,000 pieces, a million choices, and somehow amongst them all the Doctor chose survival. And that I thought, is that a deliberate? I don't remember a second one.
I was watching it tonight, and they used the effect twice.
Oh.
So I didn't know whether this is part of. I didn't remember the Androzani stuff, but now you say it, because boys, I did read that book. I was wondering whether I'm reading too much into it, whether that's to do with Billy Piper's coming in, I hope we're not fracturing into a multiverse where, it just doesn't bear thinking about, does it? But yeah, I just felt that might or might not be important, or maybe they just had an effect and they thought, we haven't used that one. We all do that with our video editors. I think, I wonder what Swish Twirl does. Not using it again.
I hadn't noticed. There were two of them. I noticed obviously there's one where Shooties, then he wakes up and he's in.
Yeah, that was the one I sort of had in mind. So when was the other one?
Well, Steve? it was in the same scene. So we had the regeneration, then we had a splinter, and then something else happened, and then we had another splinter out.
Right. Okay.
And then he was lying on the grass on a very cold morning, by the looks of it.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. It was like February or something when I saw the set report tweet, and you can see in Confidential that the breath is hanging in everyone's breath, and they've got lights up to make it look warmer.
Mm-hmm. The other throwaway line, well, not throwaway line, the boss says hello.
Yeah.
And then it was a they they say hello or something like that. They say hello or whatever. So I was kind of wondering whether we're staggering towards Missy content, master content.
Yeah, we still didn't get any explanations of the fourth wall being broken and all of that stuff, you know. And
then BP had to go and do it all over again just to make you go out and buy a new telly and a new hammer.
Yeah. And Susan, Carol Ann didn't come back.
No.
Which is mind-boggling. She was in it was obvious from the scene in Space Eurovision that they were obviously setting something up.
Yeah.
There had to have been something else supposed to happen with Carol Ann and Susan. I mean, that was one thing I'd heard, that Susan was involved in at least one version of the finale that someone had seen, that had told me about.
Oh, the nightclub scene.
Well, that was her thing. Yeah, because from the Happy New Year moment. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was weird, because you had Ncuti at one point fairly recently in that outfit again.
Right.
It might have been in Confidentially Unleashed, I can't remember, but we saw him in that outfit that he only ever wore in that first episode.
Interesting.
And I did think, we're going back there, it's all going to tie into Ruby Road, blah, 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 blah. And
I remember talking about that before.
Yeah, and it didn't.
Yeah, and I was sure that the Rani was the person who dropped Ruby off at the church and all that, you know. And I thought, at last that's going to be revealed, because everything about it just looked, just with the boots as well, and just the silhouette.
Yeah,
that's definitely who this is, you know. But then no, nothing, nada.
Yeah, it was very, I don't know. I mean, I think it worked coherently, but if you start to think about if you think about all the other stuff, you sort of go, well, hang on.
We better do the Russell's Ratometer, fellas.
You know, it's going to be tricky.
I'm giving it a 4 because the good bits were very good. I couldn't get to sleep till for ages. I was, despite being shattered and all that. I'm giving it a 4 because I think on its own terms it succeeded. Divorced of all of the chat and circumstance and all that sort of thing. And, Omega was a bit crap. The way the Rani was dispensed with quite quickly was a bit crap. But the surprise of a regeneration when I didn't know one was really going to happen was something I never thought I'd have again. And overall, it was probably one of the most coherent season finales Russell's ever given us. So I think just on its own terms, I'm giving it a 4.
It's a tricky one. I'm trying to think back to everything else I've done before, but in all honesty, this is the episode that I've enjoyed most, and I know I've already handed out a 5, but I'm going to give it a 5 because at the end of the day, despite our chat and all the holes I can pick in it, I really enjoyed it.
And John, your rating of today, not of Saturday night.
Give us both.
Well, no, the episode itself, my evaluation hasn't really changed that much. I was really relieved, as I said, that it wasn't as bad as I thought it could have been, but still wasn't amazing from my humble perspective. So I'm going to give it a 3, which is not damning, But yeah, I'm not going to go above a 3.
Thank you very much, gents, for your thoughts and discussions. There are indeed more questions than answers, but we're not going to go out with that. I was thinking we could play out with something that ties into something that Dave said earlier about what you said the wind sounded like against your window, Dave. What did you say it was?
No, it's because I thought you were going to cut that bit out. It's quite windy, listeners, so it sounded like it was a bee farting against my window, my living room window.
Well-known Eurovision entry.
Yes, I don't remember that one.
There's nothing wrong with a bee. I mean, it's like honey to the bee.
Oh, right, okay. And I have to disagree with your choice of music. I think if we're going to see Farewell or see Ncuti on his way, okay, if he were chocolate, he'd eat himself and all of that, but for me it has to be Air's Sexy Boy, because he certainly leaned into it.
I would pick Billy's cover of the Blondie hit The Tide Is High, because it was banging. I love a cover version. Screensaver of my brain is going to be Dr. John twisting and turning in his chair here.
I'm showing off my exquisite decolletage. Giving you the full.
If you're doing a lucky dip, Kenny, I'm afraid you have to put Dugadoo in there, just on the off chance that we can end on a really fine note.
Dugadoos.
Right, hang on. I've got a post-it note here, so I've written down, just for the clarity of our YouTube viewers there, everything's written down there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm now going to cut this into 4.
Goodness me.
I'm doing this.
Electing a pope.
Show the cutting for the benefit of our YouTube. Hold it up and cut it so the YouTube viewers can see.
Now we go.
Remember the time we made that joke so often, and then someone commented somewhere saying, "I can't find your YouTube channel."
Now we go over to East Kilbride. The votes from Kenny.
Strap them to the back of a hamster. Put it in a wheel. See which one falls off.
Right, are we ready?
Yeah.
Could do random shuffle, and the first one out is
Fair
Sexy
enough.
Boy from Air.
Well, there you are. I, for one, am pleased.
A good song.
I have to. I quite like, and also it's appropriate because it featured quite heavily in Queer as Folk as well. So
Exactly. Not that I've ever seen that, but it's also from the album Moon Safari, which
Great
again
album.
says quite Doctor Who-ish as well, isn't it?
The last bit of trivia, which I read before coming on, was that Jonathan Groff?
Oh God, let's talk about that bit. How crap did that look?
Well, apparently he filmed this whilst filming Rogue
Yeah.
and did that whole speech. I had no idea what it meant.
Yeah.
According to TARDIS fandom wiki.
Yeah, it's on. It was on Unleashed. It was on Confidential. They showed it. That bit looked terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It really looked like a man standing in front of a green screen reading some lines off on a date-board to a camera. It was awful.
I'm surprised they didn't do that as the work experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, listeners, join us soon when we discuss what happens next.
When we discuss next week's Confidential special.
Yes, confidential special.
Oh, yes, that's an
Confidential
excellent
Unleashed
idea.
special.
That's
Yeah.
a great idea. Let's do that.
We should come back for that one.
Sounds good to me.
Have my special pointy bra on.
Thanks, Madonna.
Madonna special. I'm going to go all out.
You're going to strike a pose.
Exactly.
Don't just stand there. Let's get to it.
Listeners, what do you YouTube viewers, what do you think of John's bra? Write into the Earth2podcast at gmail.com and Peter will pass on your thoughts.
Exactly.
Looking at my bra.
Exactly.
You're saying I've got now, well, you know.
Happy days.
Yes.
We'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
everyone.
Bye for now. Bye. Thank you.